Thank you for tuning in to the Unjiggered podcast. If you enjoy listening, please consider subscribing and giving us a rating on your podcast service of choice. Also, don't forget to like and tag us on Instagram at unjiggered_media. Thank you to everybody for listening, and now on with the show. You're listening to Unjiggered, a bartender podcast where we interview highly successful bartenders about their careers, lives, and the passion of bartending. Our guest this week is Giuseppe Gallo, the founder of Italicus, the previous global ambassador of Martini, and the owner of Italspirits consultancy. So sit back and enjoy our chat with Giuseppe.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Giuseppe Gallo, Italian born, raised and grew up in London, UK, and I've been working in hospitality and cocktail industry for the last 20 years.
So thank you very much for dedicating some time for us. You mentioned that you are from Italy. There's quite a lot to talk about. So why don't you tell us, where are you from originally?
I'm originally from the Amalfi Coast in south of Italy, in a little town very popular in Italy for the making of the buffalo mozzarella, just off Salerno, where the famous university, the all bartenders love, was back in the days. And I was born in 1980. I went to hospitality school till the 1999, and after that I started to travel for work in order to craft my profession and specialize into cocktail and bartending.
Nowadays it's a quite rare thing to find bartenders or people in hospitality that actually started from hospitality school. Did the hospitality school give you an advantage, or like how was it?
Yes, I completely agree with you. It's also very difficult to see many people after hospitality school continuing work in this industry, because as we all probably aware, is such a tough and heavy job, mainly at the beginning of your career. And lots of people, they usually give up and try to find something a little bit more soft or more cleaner job, if I can put it like 100%. That. Yeah. For me, it was not really many options, as, you know, coming from a very heavy touristic geographical area as Amalfi Coast, most of the businesses, including my family business, it was a little deli, working very much with the tourists. So obviously during the summer, by even during the winter, it was always a job available, shift available for bartenders, cocktail waiters, waiter, restaurants, chef, receptionist. So it was almost like a natural choice made with my parents when I was 14, 15 to go to the hospitality school. And I do think that it really gave me a very good basic to start this profession, this work. It obviously had to be improved after the school. You can study as much as you can, but then if you don't practice what you studied, it's very difficult to succeed on anything. So what I did after I got my diploma on the summer of the 1999, I started to travel, first of all, north of Italy or other cities in Italy, and then abroad in Switzerland, US, and UK.
Awesome. What was the first job?
Very simple. It was a barista. So when I was 14 or 15, you starting to work in my hometown in the little barista cafe, making espressos and cappuccinos. Serving breakfast or working there on Sunday over the weekend. My official first day at work, it was the 1st of July, 1995. And it was in a little 3-star hotel in a village called Paestum. It's very famous as is one of the historic town village founded by the Greek in the south of Italy. The word Paestum is Greek. And it was literally like, serving in the restaurant to kids and, families during the busy weekend. And from there, I got a job for 2 months. So I worked officially from the 1st of July till the 31st of August that summer, which was my first summer break after the first year at a high school. And I remember that I think I lost 7 or 8 kilos in 2 months. And when I went back home that evening in the end of August, my mom, she thought that I was sick, how skinny I was. It was just because I never worked so hard and so much in my life beforehand.
But I also think that working the summer season is quite cool, not only because, yes, you do get to work quite hard, but usually you are in quite fun cities, like it's holiday resorts and stuff. So at least I remember from my days working on the summer season, I was working very hard, but I was also going out quite a lot. So you kind of have a very, very little time to sleep. I don't know if your experience was similar.
Absolutely. Absolutely. U15, it was my first ever summer outside the house without my parents. And, I was free to go to sleep at any time, wake up at any time, do whatever I like it. And it was very tough because I was starting in the morning at 7 o'clock for breakfast, working all non-stop till 3 p.m. So after lunch, then I would have like a 3 hours break, start again at 6:30 in the evening and finish again around 10 p.m., 11 p.m. But the first thing he was go run, you take a quick shower, and then you go out and enjoy yourself. There are some holidays for everybody, so everybody enjoying. I completely agree. And that's probably one of the reasons why I lost so much weight as well.
So you left Italy at quite early stage. What was your first experience abroad and why did you decide to leave?
My first experience abroad, it was in the summer of 2000. So 1 year after I finished the school in Switzerland. And the reason why I went to Switzerland is because I find a little hospitality course, which was hospitality management at l'École Hôtelière de Lausanne, which was really, really helpful and valuable looking back now. But moreover, I had an opportunity to go and work as a stager at a 5-star hotel on Col de la Croix, which is just off Lausanne and the lake in Geneva. So it was everything very close, where I really learned a little bit more about that kind of fine dining and Michelin star restaurant. I was a commis de rang, so I couldn't speak any French. I had no expertise. I was studying at school in the morning, but I still remember very clearly that 2 months there during the summer, be some of the most valuable and productive days of my life.
So how's hospitality school in Switzerland? Because they are the best in the world, aren't they?
It's a military service.
Is it? Was it quite hardcore?
I wouldn't say hardcore, but they're very strict. You there to achieve results. You're not there to waste or to spend any time during your summer. And also you pay for those courses. So I was literally making money working that summer. With the money I was making, I was paying the course. Mm-hmm. So I had no money to go out and have a drink, but the money I was making, I was paying for my own knowledge, which it was kind of difficult to digest back then, for a young 20 years old, single young guy, visiting a different country, but it definitely worth it. But they were very, let's say, strict and ambitious and pushing in terms of teachers and mentors for us to really focus and dedicate ourselves to the course and to achieve the result.
So you mentioned it was quite strict. Was it about grooming or timekeeping, or what was it that made it strict?
It was a lot of new data, new information that we had to absorb. Obviously, it was not in Italian, so for me, for the first time, it was in different language. So it was even more difficult for me because I had to translate in order to understand everything. And on top of having to work when I finished the course, I had to do some homework as well. And the homework, it was fairly heavy. Back then, trying to build, a business plan or P&L, it was literally for me, speaking with an alien. I had no clue what it was all about. And all of a sudden, you're going from a very light style of school where you're studying grammar and, geography and history and cocktails, to have to start maths and finance and algorithmic and, and rules. So it was really groundbreaking for me, but it was a big wake up call that if I really want to become a manager one day or want to succeed in this profession, I had to improve my skills, my knowledge and my experience.
What did you do after Switzerland?
I went back to Italy to actually do the real military service. In Italy
That's a
back
real
then,
deal.
yeah, back then in Italy, for the people born on 1980, so my year, like we were still required to do 12 months military service. I was lucky enough not to be forced to do the whole 12 months, but I lost the whole winter in Italy for the military service. After a few months, I had a dispense, so I could go. And right after that, so it was already the summer of 2001, I went to work for 2 years at Villa Serbelloni on Como Lake on the north of Italy. It's a beautiful, stunning location just off the Alps between the Como Lake, the northern Lombardy region, just at the edge with Switzerland, with Lugano. And one of the best experiences I ever had, because it was for me going back to the initial school I did at my early stage, but really like refreshing everything and actually doing practice there, because the cocktail that I was studying, I still remember the first ever cocktail I studied at school. I was 15. It was the Brandy Alexander.
Yeah, it's true. We all did that. Eh? We all started this Brandy Alexander. I sold like 6 in my whole life.
Which you can imagine when you're 15, 16 and you do practice at school, you really like this kind of cocktail because, it's cream de cacao, some brandy, it's kind of like, on the sweet side. But I never made it at work. And all of a sudden I'm going to work there. And one of the first week in the evening, I have this couple sitting at the table and the lady asking for a Brandy Alexander. It's like, finally, it's like, I'm going to make my best Brandy Alexander now because I have experience of that. I learned other things. I learned the hierarchy, working with historic established team, bartenders and a bartender, junior, senior bartenders. It was a 2-star Michelin restaurants there, so I learned a lot about fine dining, mise en place, back of house, planning, preparing, briefing, reporting, all things that obviously in the little coffee bar or in the little 3-star hotel in the south of Italy I was not able to experience. So it was really a freshening up to me, and that's where I realized that without speaking a proper English, at least professional-wise, it was no way I could grow in this industry. And that's why I decided after that the next step, the next stop, it will be London.
So this is like early 2000s. How was London at that stage?
I came to London the first time end of 2002. Mm-hmm. So I was in London throughout the 2003. It was very vibrant. It was very hectic. It was fast. You're coming from a little village in south of Italy or a quiet village on the Como Lake. All of a sudden, you find yourself in this metropolitan city with 10 million people speaking all different languages, moving so fast. Everything was like, wow, just like another speed. But it was very interesting. It was very interesting because it was the first time for me to have really connection with a multi-ethnic environment. And, it was my first time that really understood what does it mean a global environment. Mm-hmm. It was when I came to London. That he had all this beautiful mix of people and cultures all together. I really enjoyed it. It was not easy. I will not lie. I was making just the money to survive. Mm-hmm. I remember my, let's say, to-go meal, it was KFC because that's everything what I could afford it. I was eating mainly at the restaurant where I was working to have some decent food. I had to pay the rent for a room that I was sharing in the house with another 7 people. I think everybody had the same experience who arrived to London for the first few months. I had to pay for a private school to study English. But it was very interesting. It burned me out after not even a year. And therefore I decided to go back to Italy and to take a little break. Because at one point it really became heavy and really stressful. Then again, probably I lost a good 6-7 kilos back then.
So at this stage, probably your mom didn't want to send you out anywhere because every time you were coming back, you were skinnier and skinnier.
Spot on, absolutely, because I still remember as it is today, like, with my two little second-hand luggages, like, walking down, the door of the house, and my mom looking at me from 10 meters a distance, like, be so worried that I was sick again. The first thing she did, she called the doctor. So the doctor came home to do a checkout for me to see if it was something wrong with. Like she thought I was completely. I mean, I still have a black and white picture that I took on Hyde Park, and I think it was Christmas Day of 2003. And obviously, I was alone. I had nobody, so I had to go around with a couple of friends, which just to hang out. And we were taking those pictures, and when I see this picture, and I see, wow, there I was skinny there. I could see, really, where the weight was gone. So, but as everything in the life, there is always a reasons why they happen. And the best things we can do from our experiences is always to take the positive sides, learn from the negative, but always try to improve and to take any experience we do to the next level, but never ever even think of or considering to give up, even if it was tough physically and mentally.
So after this break, you're back in Italy. What are your thoughts at this point?
I went back to Italy because one of my schoolmates from the school, he got a job at the Hilton in Rome. Mm-hmm. And he had a position available. So he called me. It's there is a position available at bar. He was working as commis rang in London in a restaurant, the beautiful San Lorenzo in Montgomery Place. And I said, I don't really see myself working in the restaurant or, become a restaurant manager one day. I rather, want to get more specialized into bar and bartending. And therefore, I decided to go to Rome, do a job interview. I got the job at the Hilton, 5-star hotel, beautiful bar. Most of the clientele, it was American, Germans, French, English, so really cosmopolitan. And, it was definitely one of the best working experience I had, because it was also my first time that I started to see cocktail the lemon drop martini or the cosmopolitan or the sea breeze, and working with brands or spirits that I never heard before or I never used before, because obviously there was a different request. So we were able to get different bottles that were not even distributed in Italy yet. And that was my wonderful experience in Rome.
How long did you work in Rome for?
About a year. And at that point, I realized that, I want to have some other experiences. It was not enough. I was too curious back then. And I was 25. So I was still hungry of knowledge.
But leaving a job like that in Italy, it's almost considered madness, right? Because you're working for a very fine establishment. You have a very secure job. And then to move on, it's a little bit crazy, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It was one... I remember that my mom, she didn't talk to me for 3 months. Because,
really?
I had a permanent position, very well paid, with a house in Rome. I was living on a seaside, working 8 hours per day, 5 days per week. It was, I don't want to say fairly an easy ride. But I could stay there. Probably today I will still have a job. I'm still going there when I'm in Rome to see the people, and still people who I used to work together, who are employed, they're still working there. They have a family, they bought a house, they grow into the company, and there's nothing wrong with that. But for me, it was just too early in my personal life, in my career, to decide to stop there. And despite all the downsides of leaving a secure job, I tried different ventures. I said, one day it's going to pay off. When you have that gut feeling that's inside you with a butterfly and all the concern, you still believe that's the right things to do. Mm-hmm. That's the right time to believe in yourself, listen your own voice, and just go for it. And that's what I did. I literally left the job in June. In a couple of weeks, I went back home in south of Italy, repacked my luggages, and I went to America.
So the States, sweet States. How was America for you? Did you stay in New York? You said, right?
I was in New Jersey, actually, which is not the ultimate destination in US, but I was in Hoboken. Hoboken is the other side of the Hudson River, just facing Manhattan, and it was like living in a movie for me. Like you wake up in the morning, you see Manhattan, and it was just like something else. And even there, like obviously, because in order to stay in US more than 3 months, you need to have a working permit or some other kind of visa. And what I had, I find an hospitality management course at the Montclair University. And I went there to study for 11 months, and I was working in the evening so I could extend my stay in US. And I stayed there for almost a year and a half. At some point, I had to go because obviously I didn't have the visa, I didn't have the green card. And, we're still very sensible years just after the 9/11. So it was a lot of focus on immigration. And I didn't want to take any personal risk to stay there without proper documents. And I said, I cannot stay here for the moment, but let me go back to Italy. I booked an appointment at the embassy Rome. Let me apply for a visa. Let me do the right steps to get the right documents. And I go to Italy. I'm going to spend a few months there, and then I'm coming back to US. And this was November 2005.
But so if it wasn't because of the visa, you would have stayed there indefinitely.
Oh, yeah. I wouldn't probably now. I would have like an American passport by now. Yeah, I wouldn't leave. Yeah. I had no nostalgia of Italy. I was not missing my, let's say, previous life. And it was everything new, got new people, new friends. It's such a huge country, different culture, and when you work in a bar, in the cocktail industry, US is the, real game. And I would go there and I would find spirits and bottles and cocktails, a terminology that I never heard before. By now I was already 25, so I had a few years experience here and there. But it was a different game, I remember going for a drink to the Rainbow Room, with a wish that maybe I could meet, the king of cocktail, Del de Graaf. But unfortunately, it wasn't there that night. But back then it was no Facebook, it was no Twitter or Instagram, it was no bar show, no spirits competition. So everything what I knew it was through the books, the old style of books, paper books where you read through. And it's I want to meet this person one day. I remember Gus Regan that he was doing some bartending courses, and I really want to apply. It was not even for everybody. You had to apply in order to get into the course. And that was all new motivation for me. It's I'm going to work, I'm going to make some money, I'm going to, invest in myself, do those courses, meet those people. And maybe one day I can go and apply for a job at the Rainbow Room for Del de Graaf. It didn't happen. It didn't happen.
So at this stage, you're back in Italy trying to get into the US. You must have been reasonably demotivated because it's not... I'm assuming you were planning to stay there, and then all of a sudden you find yourself in a situation where you just can't do it. So how did you cope with that?
Well, I had to book a ticket, flying back to Italy, and try to deal with Italian bureaucracy, going to the American Embassy Rome. It was like a nightmare even to make a booking. And it was everything so complicated. Anyway, for whatever reasons, I couldn't get the documents. So yes, I was a little bit upset. I had to, push back my return to US into the following year. And again, it was end of November, just the beginning of December. Amalfi Coast is a beautiful, beautiful area, but during the winter, it may be a little bit boring, if you allowed me the terminology. And he said, you know what, I still have lots of friends working and living in London. Rather than spend 3 or 4 months here doing nothing, I'm going to go to London, find a job, work a little bit, and then before the spring, I'm going to fly back straight from London to US. And this was early December 2005. And not too far, exactly 15 years later now, a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, and two businesses in London. I don't think I'm ever going to leave UK again.
Still waiting for the visa.
I'm still waiting for the visa, yes.
So at this stage, you're back in the UK. What did you do? What was the first... because I think at this point, it kind of felt like temporary, right? So how did you go about getting a job, and was it through the connections that you had?
Yeah, I had a lot of friends working at the Locanda Locatelli and Cipriani. You know, those couple of restaurants, they'd just been open for a year. So it was like, you know, the place to be back then. And as you know, if you've ever been in London, you know that probably 90% of the staff, restaurant and bar staff, they're all Italian. So they all like, you know someone who knew someone. So, you know, I'm going there, I'm dropping CV around to those restaurants, through some friends, to other restaurants. And after not even a week, I have a job at the Zafferano restaurant in Knightsbridge. And I went there to leave the CV because 2 weeks early on, when I was still in Italy, watching the news, I was watching that the Zafferano restaurant in London. That year, they bought the biggest white truffle coming from Alba. It was a 2-star Michelin restaurant, and I got a job as a chef de rang. At this one, it was the 5th of December, 2005, if I remember correctly. A few days before, while I was leaving CV around, I also left the CV at the bar manager at the Baglioni Hotel in a High Street, Kensington in London. And the guy, after 2 weeks, he called me and said, like, you know, we have a role available. I know it's just before Christmas, but, you know, if you think you're interested, why you don't come and we're having a chat? So literally after not even 15 days at the restaurant, I'm quitting the job as a chef de rang to take a junior bartender position at Brunello Bar at the Baglioni Hotel. So I decided to cut my salary to do one step down in terms of role position, but in order to go and work in a bar. Mm-hmm. And it was the best decision I could make.
So you stayed in the bar ecosystem, essentially.
Yes, because when I went there, Matteo, the bar manager, he was a very nice person who introduced me to a lot of friends and colleagues in London. Introduced me to Salvatore Calabrese. He took me to the 50. So I had my first introduction to the maestro. and introduced me to Giuliano Morandini, to Alessandro Palazzi, to Tony Michelotta. I used to run the Dukes back then. And lots of those colleagues, they were coming to the Baglioni to enjoy some drinks or some dinner. So I started to build my network, my community within the industry in London. And moreover, what I think back then, the bar manager gave me the best advice I probably had in my professional life. Because once again, as you could hear, I was going somewhere, I always try to invest in some private bartending course. And I was asking him, do you know any good bartending course? And back then I was like, I know that Nicolas St. Jean, he has this beautiful Flair Academy here in London. I may should go there. I heard Tom Dyer just opening one. I was one of that young kids at Roadhouse for the final, shouting there like they were legends for us. And I remember him say I think you should do something different. Find a nice girlfriend, not Italian, so you can practice English. Uh-huh. And instead to go out and having a pizza, choose the bar where you want to visit. Go there, don't sit at the table, sit at the bar and start to chat with the bartenders. Never criticize, but keep your eyes open and try to learn what they're doing. Because everywhere where you're going to go, you're going to learn something new. And just talking with those bartenders at the bar, you will learn new things. They will inspire you. And you're going to improve your English.
So which bars did inspire you? Which ones were the bars that defined, they were sort of key for your development?
Well, the bar that changed my personal life and my professional life definitely was the Montgomery Place as a guest. Mm-hmm. The Montgomery Place just opened in 2006. Uh-huh. It was the first kind of really speakeasy in London. And the guys who they opened the bar, they were Agostino Perrone and Stefano Francavilla. My wife used to live just above the Montgomery Place. So all my day off, they were there because of my girlfriend. And we were spending all our time at the bar at the Montgomery Place, where we became such a good friend with Agostino and Gabriela. She's the wife of Agostino Perrone. And that then Agostino and Gabriela are also like, the godfather and godmother of our first daughter.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's so we are still today, we are very, very, very close with Agostino, with his family. And then Stefano left to go to Tommy Striagaves in San Francisco with Charles Vexenen. And Agostino hired a young guy from Slovakia. Nobody knew him. He had a very unusual style behind the bar. This guy was Marian Becchi. And that time I was working at the Purple Bar at Sanderson, and I was looking for a bartender. Back then, when you're looking for a staff, you have a phone and you send texts around. It's like, guys, I'm looking for a bartender. Do you know anybody? Marian called me back, said, I may have a friend that is looking for a new job. I'm going to send him over to meet you. And this new friend that Marian introduced me, he was Eric Lawrence.
So before we start talking about Eric, because Eric, I think, was another great person that you came in contact with. Would you like to talk to us about the Sanderson's Hotel? What was about it that you liked, and how was the hotel structured? Because the main bar, the long bar, was actually a money-making machine, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was basically by September 2006. I thought that it was enough, my experience at the Baglioni, because it was everything very interesting, by where all Italians, run by Italians and managed by Italians. And my question mark to me, it was, I didn't came to London to work with Italians and speak Italian all the times. I want to work with the English people, with other culture. I need to learn, I need to see different things in order to expand my knowledge, expand my mentality. And I won a competition that year. I won a trip to Sweden with this competition. And there I met Angelo Vieira and Hugo Berlan, which they were running the program at the St. Martin's Lane at the Sanderson Hotel. And while we were chatting, he said, they were looking for a staff. I was looking for a new challenge. Like, what about when we're back in London, you come to see us? So maybe we can have a chat. And by October that year, I started as a bartender at the Long Bar. And it was the place where I think at some point I starting to hate mojito, but just because probably each bartender was making an average of 300, 400 mojito per night. It was
That's
incredible.
crazy.
At some point I had to put plaster on my fingers because I was putting so much rum at the bottle. It had a funny shape that it was actually when you're starting to have a pain in your finger because you're stretching too much. One of the nail from my finger, it fall off for Christmas because incredible. I remember running a shift in the evening, going back home, and for probably 1 hour sitting on the sofa, armless, hanging the arms on the sofa because I couldn't move my arm and my hands. How tired I was. That bar, the Long Bar, a good busy Friday or Saturday night, I still remember we would do everything between 800 to 1,200 people guests, and it was an average of between 25 to 30K take it per night. Only drinks, just beverage. It was no food. It was shocking. We had people Nick Jagger come there, Quentin Tarantino, Madonna, it was wow. It was the place was wow. The music, it was always very high. It is L-shaped bar, it looked like some point almost like in a stadium, in an arena, because you had on Saturday around 11 midnight, you had layer of people put their hands up and try to place an order. And it was so loud that at some point I wouldn't even talk to the guest. I would just mimic with my mouth. With the fingers 2, 3, just shaking my hands, that's it. Because I had no voice at all. And they wouldn't hear me anyway because it was so high, the music. And that was the energy of that place. That place, it was groundbreaking. Beginning of 2000, was wow.
So after the Long Bar, you guys had this residents only bar called the Purple Bar there. What was the idea? Because it was a crazy bar as well, wasn't it?
Yes, I wasn't that strong enough. So after, I think, 5 or 6 months, by the spring of the following year, so we are now in 2007, I went to the bar manager and it's like, I don't think I'm going to stay longer. I don't think it's really, that's what I want to do. I love making cocktails, but also I want to take some time to make the cocktails. I want to experiment. I want to do some other stuff. Here it's like, I think the word high volume is not enough for that bar. It was like just like a machine. It was a caterpillar. And I said, like, it was the spring. Maybe it's a good time for me to go on and start looking for another job. And the management, it was very nice and very intelligent to say, like, we see that you're really passionate about mixology. All this craft mixology that we're talking about today, back then, it was not that common. So it was just coming. We're talking about the days where the French martini, pineapple, chambord, and vodka, it was the best-selling cocktail, yeah? So, like, that was, like, the ultimate mixology back then, yeah? Just, like, to give you an idea.
Apex of cocktail making.
Yeah. Like, an espresso martini with a touch of Frangelico, it was a next-level espresso martini. Forget about the cold brew or, pea berry coffee from New Zealand or this kind of stuff. It was nothing like that. And I said, like, we have a bar supervisor position at the Purple Bar. It's a Oli residence bar. I think it was, probably like, 12 tables, 30 seats, super premium, champagne by the glass, the Oli champagne by the glass. It was Dom Perignon from 1996. We changing the menu twice a year. It's a seasonal. It's all about customer service. It's all about giving the ultimate experience to our hotel guests or to our members. And that's where I started. I took the challenge. I got the position and I started there at the Purple Bar at the beginning of 2007.
So the Purple Bar is also where you had the chance to work with Eric, as you discussed earlier on. So what stood out about Eric from the get-go? What made it special?
The most important thing about the Purple Bar is to make very clear that it was a vodka bar. The Purple Bar was very famous in the world, not just in UK, because he had one of the largest selection of vodkas in the world. Today, if you open a bar and you're telling we have a large selection of vodka, probably bartenders, they're going to laugh on you. So like back then, vodka, it was the, real deal. And so it was very appealing to work there. Because even for us as a bartender, like vodka brands, they were very active. I remember done so much work with all different types of vodkas from Wyberowa, it was our house vodka, Ketel One, Grey Goose, Belvedere, Ultimate, it was Russian standard. We had so many, 42 below. We have all this funny flavor. We were one of the few bars having all the 4 flavors of the 42 below vodka: the Fijoa, the kiwi, the passion fruit, and the pew. It's it was a different. It was a different mentality. Let's put it like this. And I started there after a couple of months. One of the bartender, he was from South Africa, so he had a working permit that he expired, so he had to go back to South Africa, and I was looking for a bartender. So, as I said, back then, if you're looking for stuff, you literally send a text to your friend, a text message, no WhatsApp, no Facebook, no post, a text message. And the first one to reply was Marian Becky. And I was like, I'm going to send this guy over. He's a friend of mine. He's coming tomorrow. Okay, let's set up a date. We set up a meeting. And I still remember that day. It was in an early afternoon around 4 p.m., 4 p.m. I was in the Purple Bar. We were doing the prep. We were setting up the bar. And I see this guy with his beautiful black velvet jacket, a proper tie, white shirts, a UKBG pin on his left side, a beautiful pochette, colorful socks. He came with those hair and gel all tied in the back and with a nice, beautiful printed CV with his picture in color. Again, guys, keep in mind, Michele, that back then it was no internet as we know today. So even print your picture in color on a CV, it was kind of a mission. You need to go to a proper shop to do that.
Hardcore.
And we're sitting there and, we're having a chat. It's Eric. I could see the guy. Eric back then, he was working in an Asian restaurant in a Buchan Place in Knightsbridge. Mm-hmm. And, it's I want to go from a restaurant bar to a proper cocktail bar because I love mixology. I love the craft movement. and I really want to, push the barriers. So, okay, fine, come for a trial shift. And 3 or 4 days later, he's coming for a trial shift for a couple of hours. And as you do with everybody, say, make a margarita and cosmopolitan. And first of all, when he came for a trial shift, only the amount of tools he took with him. So he's starting to unpack all these.
He brought his own tools for his trial.
Yeah.
What a genius, man!
And he opened this bag. Back then, nobody had a tool bags. Yeah, let's be honest. Nobody had tool bags. We had 3 spoon, couple of tins. If you were lucky, like a 3-piece shaker in a bar. That's it. That's what we had. And then maybe in a cheap mixing glass somewhere. Eric is coming, he opens his bag, he's starting to get the 3 picks, ice pick, the single pick, the Japanese bitters bottle. Never seen something like that before. Never, ever. Back then we had a bottle of Angostura, you pouring straight from the Angostura. That's what it was. And so he's unpacked, he literally set up himself like a doctor on top of the bar. He's you want to make a margarita cosmopolitan. I'm turning back to go to the door because somebody was coming in, and all of a sudden I'm starting to hear on the back, shh, 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 shh. All the shaking, like the Japanese shake. I'm turning back and I see Eric turning on the side, doing this funny shake. It's like, what is doing there? He's shaking on the wall. What is that? And it's like, Eric, why you do that? Why are you shaking like this? This is the Japanese shaking method. It's coming from, he's starting to give me all this background about Japanese bartending and Japanese hard shake, which make these all little bubbles on top of the margarita. Can you see, literally, 2 hours later, it's like, Eric, if you want the job, it's yours. It's exactly what it's even too much for me, but it's exactly what we need.
It was miles ahead, wasn't he?
Oh, yeah, but it's Eric, even Marian back then, they were already to another level. And I remember those conversations back then with Agostino, as I said, we were very close. And Agostino was always saying, the level of experimentation of Marian is just another level. There is no other bartenders in the world that I know. Agostino back then, he was the class bartender of the year, theme bartender of the year. He was the hottest name in the industry. So saying that literally his junior bartender, it was the experiment level, it was another level. That's make you understand. And he was always saying that, Eric, it's just a matter of time because he's so talented. And because on top of it, all these super defined skills and techniques, is also Eric very charming. He's an entertainer. He's also a really fun guy. It's very smart. It's really knowledgeable. So you could see he had all the, characteristics. He had all the skills to really succeed. And it's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
for both of them.
The writing was on the wall, was it? So after the Sanderson's Hotel coming back to you, you have left for a brand job. So would you like to talk to us about which brand you chose and why, and what was the idea behind it?
Yes, one of the great experience we did at Sanderson, it was to create this academy for our staff, for our team, but also for people from outside. And that's how we became a very good friend with Marian or with Alex or with other bartenders in the industry, because we were inviting them to join us once or twice a week at 2 p.m. for a training program where we will ask brand or ambassadors to come by training our staff and ourselves on the categories. And one of the main regular there, it was Colin Dunn, which probably has been the one who opened up the idea that one day I could be an ambassador, I could be a trainer, because he really liked this idea of the academy that we put together. So one day we were discussing Scotch whiskey, another day American whiskey, another day vodkas, another day rum, always with different people. And I started to cooperate and work more closely with the brands. And one of my best friend, it was David Cordoba, that he was working in Edinburgh at the Bramble Bar. And David, he got a job as a global ambassador for Bacardi rum. June 2008, I'm in Italy. My sister got married, so I was spending a week in Italy. He gave me a call and said, listen, Martini Rossi, the vermouth brand, they're looking for a global ambassador, and I think it can be a good job for you. What about I'm going to put your name forward? And I said, David, but what is a brand ambassador? What exactly do you do? Don't worry, send me your CV. And I sent him my CV. He's like, yeah, whatever. Like, I sent the CV. And it's like, 10 days later, I got a call from the Bacardi Global Brands office in London. It's like, we got your CV. We are looking for an experienced bartender to join our team as a brand ambassador. Would you like to come in for an interview? An endless process. It took almost like a year and a half before I actually started. But I was lucky to make it through. So basically by May 2009, I got offered a full-time job with the Martini Vermouth. And meanwhile, the few months early, I got a job offered from Ketel One in UK to be the UK ambassador. But back then, I actually thought that vermouth was more interesting as a category, as a challenge. It was not many vermouth in the world. Like, I think Carpano Antica, it just came out. There were a few bars in London who had the Carpano Antica. Then it was Martini and Cinzano. That's it. It was nothing else. There's nothing else available. And, I was also a good friend with the ambassador, Johnson Smith. And I've been already to Rotterdam to meet the Nolet family. And it was very interesting. It was probably more safe and more cool to go with the Ketel One. But I think I made the right decision. I said, I'm Italian. I want to specialize on Amaro, on aperitif. And I think going with this challenge, with this brand, with this company, he probably gonna give me a better journey, a better path down the line. And I started in May 2009 with the Martini Rossi.
So Martini is probably the most iconic beverage brand in Italy. How was back then the brand? At what stage was it when you picked it up? And how did you guys progress towards the point where Martini was when you left?
Oh, well, when I started and when I left, two different worlds. Everything moved so quick. It's when I started with Martini was the number one brand by volume in Europe. It was about 20 million liter cases. To translate in a finance world for everybody, we're talking about few billions turnover per year. And you end up working with this massive organization, with this brand that, it's everywhere, that everybody knows. And back then, the main priority for the brands, it was cinema partnership. So they had a TV ad with George Clooney and Naomi Campbell. And my first project, after 5 days, I started with with Martini. It was to travel to Monte Carlo and organize for a week the hospitality, because back then Martini was one of the sponsors of the Ferrari F1 car. So we rented a yacht, parked for a week in Monte Carlo during the
not bad first week
for the Formula One weekend. And I'm going there and I see models and actors and drivers and CEO visiting the yacht. And my job, it was just to be the host, making the drinks and make them happy with some Martini cocktails. Wow, this is a dreaming job. And after that, it was to go and work alongside Dolce & Gabbana, the two designers, but not the team. I'm talking about Domenico Dolce and Stefano Gabbana to create a new product with them. So my first ever, let's say, NPD, new product development project, it was Martini Gold by Dolce & Gabbana, two massive international brands, Italian brands, that they're making one product together. They did a TV ad where the main actor was Monica Bellucci. And I was there sitting in a meeting with the boss of the director back then, and they were not sure if to choose Penelope Cruz or Monica Bellucci for the TV ad. I end up myself in this world, and the boss, not me, Italian, is like, hey you, as Italian, who would you prefer, Monica Bellucci or Penelope Cruz? I was a young one, so I would take both.
Yeah, I would take both. I'm happy either way.
So it was stunning, but anyway, job then, I got more into it, and I have to say, probably the biggest experience take out of the journey with Martini, it was that I had the pleasure to meet the master distiller, Ivano Cenutti, and the master blender, Beppe Musso, which today I'm still very close to them. They are two really humble, but super knowledgeable and sharp professional, which, we all like to experiment behind the bar. We like to make our own bitters, to infuse and to do, but I remember spending time with them at the distillery in Italy. After probably 20 minutes, when you have that moment that you black out, you say, you know what, I think that everything what have been done behind the bar in terms of infusing and stuff, I think it's better I'm going to keep it quiet because I look like a fool right now with those guys. It's, their knowledge is just another level. And, one day, I remember always saying to them, one day with you, it's like 1 year at the university for me.
That's crazy.
You learn so much about production, operation, botanicals, distillation, vapor infusion, and wine, and blending, and sugar, and pH, and acidity. It's just another level. And, I started to get mad, and I said, we need to make sure that the bartenders, they meet those guys. I want my friends to meet those guys. I want Eric and Agua and Martin. I want them to talk to them because every single word, when they're speaking, it's opening a new door for me. It's giving me a new inspiration, a new motivation. And they were not used to, as a master blender and master distiller, they were not comfortable to speak in front of a crowd. So I started to bring them around a little bit to talk to crowd. And from there, they always consider myself a little bit crazy. And when I started with Martini, I was pushing to say, if you see the Carpano Antica, we need to do the same thing for Martini. And nobody will approve that project. Because everybody's who, Martini? We are the biggest one in the world. Why we need to make, a product that's selling a few hundred bottles here and there? For that kind of price. What to justify the price? So trying until the 2013, when, after probably dozen of refusal to approve the project, it was the 150th anniversary for the brand. And I proposed this project to a new director, and I said, it's the brand anniversary, so we need to make a limited edition. And it's oh yeah, nice idea, limited edition, that's what we should do, like whiskey. Yeah, exactly, like whiskey, we do a limited edition. Why? What can we do? We need to do something unique. Say, yeah, of course, something top notch. Let me work with the master distiller, master blender to come up with something unique. And I'm going to Turin. I'm going to the distillery, and I'm going to them. It's we should make a vermouth chinato because nobody makes vermouth chinato anymore. And they look at me with their open eyes. Vermouth chinato? It's I remember the master blender. I haven't tasted vermouth chinato at least for 30 years in my life by now. I said, but that's what bartenders they like, because I could see the bitters trend coming through in 2012, 2013. So everybody was looking for a new bitters to add, splash in the cocktail. It's if we do a vermouth chinato, it's going to bring a new flavor profile into the vermouth category and for bartenders to play behind the bar. And that's where the idea of Martini Gralusso came out. And, but I have to say that Ivano, the master distiller, after that is I know that we had a fan of you when you proposed the vermouth chinato, but we have to admit that you were right.
There you go.
And a few years later, in a
of
private
course, it always
conversation.
takes a bit of time, no?
And I truly believe that probably Martini Gralusso has been, definitely has been one of the top ever, quality-wise, in terms of formulation and complexity, vermouth that the industry ever seen.
Another product that I would like to talk to you about, because I think it was quite crucial, is the Reserva Speciale. The two vermouths that were launched at a very aggressive price point, but extremely high quality. Can you talk to us about how that came into shape? Because they were launched slightly after you left, if I'm not mistaken.
I launched it. It was my last project with Martini.
Was your project, okay.
And obviously, Martini Gralusso, he made the whole brand, the whole company confident that also Martini could launch a premium and a different style of vermouth. And so Martini Gralusso was such a success and so much demand that then, not even a few months later, the first thing the brand director, he came and asked me we need to make now a permanent Martini Gralusso or style. And, they actually I remember finding the two names, Rubino and Ambrato, because I want to still Martini, the whole range is Rosso, which is red, Bianco, which is white, Rosé. So we need to keep going with the colors. And I was always giving the example of Johnny Walker. Red, black, blue, double black, double gold. That's what we need to do. And I said, we probably need to make something a little bit more simpler than Martini Gralusso. Not a kind of complex in terms of taste profile and sophistication, but still different in terms of flavor profile or formulation for bartenders to play with. And for both of them, we make them, and I remember having this conversation that I was telling them we can charge more for Ambrato and Rubino. There is a room to price the bottle a little bit higher. But also, it's very difficult for a corporation who 99% of the business, it's a 1 liter bottle of vermouth for €10, already pricing a 75 bottle at 12 or 13 euro. For them, it's a huge margin, and it's already a premium position. But going from there to 15 or 16, they thought it was a little bit too much of a stretch. But also, lots of people within the trade. I remember having this conversation with Eric at the visitor center in Turin when we launched Martini, because his first question was, "How much are you gonna pay for a bottle?" It's it will be $12.50 in UK. I said, "Only $12.50? Why so low the price?" And I remember it was the brand director next to me. It's a good question, Eric. Well done. But, their approach was we don't want to be greedy. We already allowed more margin for the company because we're selling on a 75 size and no liter. And we already pricing €2.50, so 25% more of what is our current range. So from a technical brand architecture point of view, they were right. From looking back, it's from an entrepreneur point of view, you could take a little bit more risk.
Yeah, I remember that because when he came back from this trip that you guys arranged in Milan, he brought a couple of bottles, the American bar, we tried them. And I remember asking him, how much is this? Because my idea was this is going to be at least 20 quid. And then he's like, I think it's going to be $12.50, man. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it was crazy. Absolutely crazy. But anyway, I think it did very well. It was very good quality product. It still is. So.
Today, that product, it was I remember, I consider Martini, Ambrato, Rubino as two kids of mine still today. And I think they just went over 3 million bottles last year.
Whoa. Crazy.
Oh, yeah. He's doing very well. Martini Reserva is doing very, very well. They're very good products. They're definitely worth it, the price for the quality. And I think they're very also unusual in terms of taste profile. I still remember, I have all the voice, the botanicals here. Martini Ambrato is the only vermouth that is truly using a sweet Moscato DOCG from Alba region. Most of the brand, they're claiming to use Moscato. But nobody said that they're using dry Moscato grapes, which is one of the most common grapes you can find in the world. Nobody say that. Everybody say Moscato, but they don't specify dry or sweet. And moreover, the DOCG from Alba, it's the ultimate sweet Moscato grapes. Rubino is using Nebbiolo on a mix of wine at the base. There are no other wines that do that, no other vermouth. If other vermouth, they don't doing it, I'm always challenging bartender, you should ask why they don't do it.
It's a very expensive, it's super premium product. The Nebbiolo is Barolo. We're talking about super premium wines in Italy. So, but enough about Martini. I think it's time to talk about your own enterprise. So, first of all, would you like to tell us what was the idea and why you decided to move away from Martini?
With Martini, I was starting my 8 years with the company. And by then, the project I've been working on from the Formula One activation with the Ferrari and then with Williams, with Dolce & Gabbana, with the cinema premiere around the world, Jamie Oliver partnership. And in 2014, I was lucky enough to won the International Ambassador of the Year at Tales of the Cocktail. And, it was now 1 year, 1.5 years launched Gralusso, launched the Martini Reserva, launched the Martini Gold, few other products here and there, involved on developing some other products, redone the whole visitor center with the Martini in Italy. I was about 35 when I said it's about time probably to take the next challenge for me, because otherwise at some point you're starting to get very comfortable, and maybe it's going to be much more difficult to leave later on. And I always had an idea to do something on my own. It was not really clear yet what I want to do, but I knew that really to push myself to do something else, I had to leave the job, because otherwise you always got trapped a little bit in your daily workload, and then you can't focus on what can be the next project you can do. And the first thing I did, it was to open this one. We are now at the end of beginning of 2016, end of 2015. I opened a bar on the King's Road in London, Gastrovino, a Barotto, which was a Amaro and Vermouth bar. And obviously still working in a category that I have my heart attached to it. And I remember a beautiful article by Alice Lacy-Sales on Financial Times that she thought that we had one of the largest Amaro and Vermouth collection in UK, which at the moment is sitting in my box here too. And then from there, I started to have few brands approach me to help them with free projects. So I initiate the agency company Italspirits as a service agency. And all of a sudden, 6 months later, I already had 5 top projects in Italy, in US and UK, 10 different brands. We hired Rudy as a brand ambassador, Rudy Carraro for Montenegro. And it was now a full-time job because business was keep coming in. And by then I already decided that I was helping some companies and brands to work on their product or launch some new product. And it was always some kind of a compromise from our end, because, the client is asking something. So we were there to provide a service to the client. So we had to make compromise on a brief, on outcome, on the result. And I said, I think it's a time now to make my own brand. And therefore I decided to really seriously push Italicus project idea forward. And on the 1st of September 2016, we launched Italicus Rosolio di Bergamotto at Savoy Hotel in London.
So I remember the launch very well. And to be completely honest with you, I thought, when I looked at the packaging, I thought it was beautiful, but I read the label, I thought Rosolio, and I thought, okay, Giuseppe Gallo lost it. So would you like to tell us why you picked such an obscure aperitivo category? And how did you turn it into the success that it became?
3 main reasons. First one, obviously working for Martini for many, many years. I was going to a university, a museum in Italy. I remember in Bologna, in Firenze, in Salerno, in Turin. And every time I was researching about Vermouth history, always the word Rosolio, 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 Rosolio popping up. And even myself was like, what the heck is this Rosolio? And I started to ask around, and the person who knew the most about Rosolio, it was my 84 years old grandma, that she's like, yeah, of course, Rosolio. When myself with your granddaddy, we got married, we give a little glass of Rosolio to our guest. Wow. It's so it really exists, those things. And then I asked my father. And my father said, yeah, Rosolio, I remember when I was a kid, my father is from the 1950s. When I was a kid, I remember, my parents drinking something called Rosolio, but, I never saw anything around. And I find it very interesting, why making another gin? Back then, I will say the hobby, it was to make Vermouth or Amaro. And then from there, the hobby became to make a new gin. Today, the hobby is to make non-alcoholic spirits.
Very true. Yeah.
And I said, why try to make another Me Too? Why not try to make something that it will play in a new category, but actually that it was popular back then? And the reality is that Rosolio is the first ever category that the Italian drinking culture ever seen. from the second Renaissance, after Christopher Columbus came back from America. So sugar cane became very popular in Europe as well, and not just in limited quantities. That's what everybody's starting to make. It was the ros olis, the dew of sun. So anything what it was available in your local garden, in your local hills, back then, the people that were harvested, infused with water because alcohol was too expensive. At the end, adding a little bit of alcohol to 45, and then dilutes a little bit with raw sugar. And that was the ros olis. And from there, the word rosolio. I'm going to do some research, and I find out that actually the Luxardo family, 1777, when the company was founded, they were making rosolio di Marasca. And that's what today we're calling maraschino. The Pallini family, which they make one of the most delicious limoncello in the world, they were making rosolio di limone. So everybody was making rosolio. So I pick up the phone and I give a call to Matteo Luxardo. I say, Matteo, what is this about rosolio? Yeah, we used to do it, but then it became so, dated, so dusted, such an old-fashioned category that we just remove it from the label. It's so I'm going to bring it back. And everybody thought I was mad. Trust me, everybody thought even my father, my father, nobody drink rosolio anymore. So not even giving a try. And that was the first reason. The second reason it was my mom. I'm from the south of Italy. So during the Christmas holiday, she was always making some carpaccio, some seafood carpaccios infused or marinated with bergamot juice or just bergamot on top. Because bergamot is a very much a citrus, a winter citrus. So the season for bergamot is literally between end of November and end of Jan. Mm-hmm. So Christmas is the best period to enjoy a proper bergamot. And it was a very familiar taste to me, but actually I could see that nobody knew what bergamot was. There is one of the greatest gifts that England spread to the world has been the tea. One of the most common tea that we drink today is the Earl Grey tea. And people, they don't know that the Earl Grey tea is a just normal standard tea leaves infused, aromatized with the bergamot. It's not lemon, it's not orange, it's bergamot. And obviously, coming from an experience working alongside the master distiller and master blender of Martini, I started to get a little bit into the essences and aromas and the trend. And I'm going around and I'm always this is a tip for everybody. The best research you can do where the new trend they can be is actually in a perfume duty-free shop in an airport. But not spraying the perfume on you. Go there and read the back label.
That's exactly the same thing that Daniel Dove said when we were talking about future trends. He said go to duty-free and check what's written on the perfumes.
I never shared this one with Daniel, but he's one of the most avant-garde person in our industry. So his word probably is much more credible than mine. And I guarantee he works. He works. And, I started to look, Armani Acqua di Gio, you look the back label, bergamot. I'm going to see Neroli Portofino, bergamot. Dolce & Gabbana, Capri Summer, bergamot. Acqua di Parma, bergamotto di Calabria. So everybody using bergamot in perfume. That June, so we launched in September. In June, I'm going for a dinner at Sexy Fish restaurant in Berkeley Square, bergamot cheesecake. I'm going in Italy for summer holiday, bergamot ice cream, bergamot granita. In December, bergamot panettone. So there is something there, right? Uh-huh. What about I'm going to be the first one to bring the bergamot as a flavor profile in the arsenal of bartenders across the world? And my goal was to open the bottle. I was always telling to the design agency, when I'm opening the bottle, the first thing you need to come on my nose is bergamot. I need to feel in Calabria. I need to feel on south of Italy. I need to smell bergamot. No lemon. No orange, no grapefruit, bergamot. Mm-hmm. And this one was the second reason. And the third one, it was looking at the liqueurs, the spirits from Italy. The two most popular one are Martini and Campari. Okay? And I was looking I look at that. It's both of them, they are kind of €10 or €14 per bottle. We all like, kind of like an entry level. But then when I look our lovely cousin in France, the same style of product, it will be 30 euro. Chartreuse. Look at the champagne or the sparkling wine. It's like, because I truly believe that France as a country, France as a nation, they know how to market themselves. They know how to position themselves in the world. When as Italian, we always underestimate and undervalue ourselves. So I'm going to be the first one to bring a premium aperitif liqueur into the market, which is going to bring back a forgotten category on completely new, unusual flavor in a stunning packaging that when you look at it, you will say Italy. And therefore the name Italicus, which is the Latin translation for Italian.
So how was the process of making your own product? How did you go about it? Because you don't have distilling facilities yourself. So I'm assuming you had to go through the process of finding someone who makes the actual liquid for you.
Yeah, and I had already a contact in Turin. Is the largest co-packer in Italy, Torino Distillati, owned by the Vergnano family. Lovely couple, lovely family. Is the former Seagram distiller in Italy. That he was discontinued, and the guy, he bought it out 20 or 30 years ago, and they're still running as a family business. So I went there, we tried a little bit, but I already had a starting point because the goal, in order to bring back the Rosolio, I found a recipe of the Rosolio di Torino on a book called Licorista Pratico from the 1894. So I already had the basic. So I went there with this recipe as it is on the book. I went to the master distiller. I said, can you make this recipe exactly as it is? He took the recipe. He went to make it. A week later, I'm going back to Italy. We're going for a tasting. And guess what? Undrinkable.
Really?
Undrinkable. Undrinkable. Very sweet, very floral, a little heavy on the tongue, but the master distiller is like, don't be surprised. You asking me to do exactly the same. That's what I did, what is on the book. But 150 years ago, people, they had a different palate, different taste profile. So what do you expect? Now we have a very good starting point. Probably it's we need to change the ratio. We need to add new flavor, but we have something to start with. And from that 5 key botanicals of the Rosolio di Torino: gentian, lemon balm, roses, lavender, and Roman chamomile. Those are the 5 botanicals on the Rosolio di Torino. What I did add cedro lemon from Sicily and EGP bergamot from Calabria. And that's how Italicus came to life.
How did you go about finding distribution for it? Because I'm sure that, you have this beautiful product, but now you have to put it on the market, right?
Correct. It's a combination of things. I had some contact, which I leveraged after I launched Italicus. For example, specialty drinks. I remember Rush be always very flexible and very accommodating. I had no budget. I had no experience. And I said, I just launched this product. Would you be so kind to, pick up a few cases from Italy and bring it to UK? And, you could challenge me. It's buy the bottle. Who am I going to sell to? I had no listing. I had no sales force. And he trusted me. He bought the bottle. And, that's how we started in UK. And, but literally after we launched on the 1st of September. So the 2nd of September, we went live with a video, with a press release. We get so many requests from markets, and we're starting to get requests and phone call. And I still remember Tim from the bottle shop, drinkshop.com. Already the day after, he texted me on Facebook, where can I buy it? I want to put on my website. And literally 3 months later, we were already available in 7 markets. A year later, we were available in 15 markets. 3.5 years later now, we are available in 38 markets across the world.
That's a fabulous story. So I think it's a beautiful thought to start to wrap this conversation around. Obviously, we talked about a lot of the struggles that you had throughout your career and the fact that you kept positive and you kept reinventing yourself. Speaking of that, do you have any tips for people in hospitality who are probably struggling right now due to the COVID situation?
Yes. This is the time that everybody need to plan for the worst and hope for the best. That's what I keep telling everyone. I know it's been not an easy year for everyone. We are in the middle of this pandemic with so much uncertainty. But the last thing we can do is to actually put ourselves down or get depressed or, starting to be negative. It's not going to help us. It's not going to help the people around us. We need to find small things and maybe simple things that for a while we forgot or we missed in our life, that they bring positivity to us and motivation, and focus on that. And if it's necessary, don't switch on your TV, don't check your Facebook, because I think there is a lot of news and things flying around which they do not help the mental strength of people. And that's what I do sometimes. When at some point it's just too much. It's like, whatever looking around, there is some bad news. You know what? Not because I want to ignore the reality, but maybe for a few days, just take a break. Mm-hmm. Switch off your media and just enjoy a simple old style life.
And just
because maybe it's going to recharge.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Very last question. Very curious to listen to your answer. We ask everyone this, and I would like to see what your answer is. So if you could choose your very last drink, what would that drink be?
Okay, that's a Thailand scenario. My very last drink, a drink that, because we've been talking about what it defined my personal life and my career in London, and also to pay homage to one of the greatest person in our industry, there will be a Tommy's Margarita, created by Julio Bermeo. Which I truly believe is a quintessential modern classic. And I remember we had so many Tommys at Margarita at Montgomery Place with Ago and Carlito and Manuel with any sort of tequila to try all different taste profile. And it's probably the first cocktail that I will have with my wife Diana when we go out. We both love tequila. So let's go for Julio's drink, the Tommy's Margarita.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Thank you so much. Thank you very much for your time. It was an awesome chat.
Pleasure. Thank you so much. A wonderful Christmas and a lovely New Year's Eve to everybody. Ciao, Michele.
We hope you enjoyed our chat with Giuseppe. We are Unjiggered_media on Instagram, and you can follow our personal accounts at mmariotti89 for Michele, Alex J. Murphy for myself, and Adrian Bessa for Adrian. Thank you for listening.